Well, thank you so much, Lucas, who has been a part of my journey since the very beginning. I want to take the time to recognize him and thank him again, so if we could give a round of applause to him. As well as actually many of the judges and mentors that are here, I've definitely interacted with you at some point as a young 17, 18-year-old as well, or 19 or 20-year-old trying to start a company, and I'm just eternally grateful and very thankful for all of you. So, yeah, I wanted to share a presentation called Life After Y2. This is actually my second time actually getting to speak and judge, so it's been great to look back and get to see myself in the past and see the growth, see the mistakes, and also build up on the things that I've learned so that I can share something new with you. So I guess a little bit about me, just as a one-liner. I'm currently a tech founder. I also invest sometimes, so let me know if you have an idea worth investing in. And I also do really love fitness. I've been powerlifting for many years, and I'm going into bodybuilding competition this year. I wanted to show you an embarrassing but truthful evolution. These are screenshots of my first pitch from 2016's Y2. This 2 years later, 2018. And then this is from a picture from 2020 when I first started my company. So I guess in the first picture you can see, I remember I said, "How's everyone doing today?" or something like that. "How's everyone doing today?" And I was really, really nervous actually. And it was one of my first times pitching ever, other than at DECA. So I didn't do very well at DECA, and I didn't think that I would come out of the other side with a legitimate business. So anything can happen, but I was actually very nervous. And in 2018, I got to share my story of how I came to Calgary. At that point, I worked with many different provinces across Canada, and actually the truth is that time I pitched was over the 100th time that I've spoken to people. So, nervous the first couple times, probably still nervous the 100th or 101st time, but it does get easier in some ways because it's just muscle memory, you're used to it, and you get a lot of good feedback. So don't take any butchered moment as failure, and if you keep going, that's all that matters. And in 2020, Layers CI is the former name of my company, WebApp.io. As you can see, not only did I have a change in fashion, I went to the tech side, the dark side, where we only wear t-shirts, Lucas. But I was able to start a tech company with not, $100,000, not even $10,000, over $1 million, $2 million. And I never thought that I would be able to handle so much money at once, right? But that $2 million wasn't just overnight. It was a series of good decisions, practice from candy color, raising over $20,000 to that. And then, the $2 million was cumulative. $30,000 grant, $2,000 putting in ourselves, $10,000 here, $100,000 there. And so that rolled into $2 million. So just wanted to share a little bit of history behind each picture. And I said this slide is for the parents because there's an upcoming one for the teens. And the reason why is because I wanted to really shill Y2 a little bit, as well as just why you should continue to practice, why you should keep going, why you should keep being curious about this world. Because it's not important that you be an entrepreneur. I don't think everyone in this room will be an entrepreneur because you might not want to, because you have other things you want to do, because it might not be for you, and that's just the truth. But it'll take elements of this into everything that you do. If you become a doctor, if you become an artist, there's entrepreneurship in all of that. Like, that is something you have to keep learning. To sell yourself, to pitch yourself, interviews, to hire good people, to have the right network around you, that's a forever thing, right? So I just want to show you in the course of 3, 5 years what actually sitting down, continuing to be curious can lead you to. And honestly, in high school, I didn't think I was very smart. I didn't get the best grades. I didn't even get, as I mentioned, all the awards, the DECAs of the world. I never placed. And that's fine. I just kept going. I kept showing up. And that consistency led me to a lot of really wonderful accomplishments. The first, as Lucas mentioned, was the Forbes Under 30. And the second that I'm really proud of is getting into Y Combinator. We were one of 11 companies out of over 12,000 applications that year. Y Combinator, if you're not familiar, is where a lot of big companies go to grow for the first time, get their first check. Airbnb, Dropbox, right? A lot of amazing companies came out of there. And so getting in there was really important for us, not only to make our mark as Canadian startup founders, but also in the developer tooling space where every year they accept hundreds of software as a service companies, and it was the right place for our customers to come in through. So that's the reason why I wanted that. And it was also good signaling for a lot of investors to say, hey, Y Combinator said yes to us. Maybe you guys should say yes to us too. And actually the way we got this was the first time my co-founder had applied as a solo founder. And he didn't get it. He was rejected almost on the spot. And we actually reflected on that. The first is they are first and foremost an investment company. Second, an accelerator. So they're looking to optimize their chances of getting people to start really big companies. And the truth is, Facebook was not started just by Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook was started by 4 people. And so as a solo founder, I realized, it does actually take a team to grow around yourself unless you're very, very experienced and very confident to make something happen. So when I joined in, that helped our chances for sure. The second thing that was really important to us is they really cared about feedback. We spoke to over 1,000 people, the developers in particular, for our developer tooling company. And that data really helped us in terms of showing that, hey, we really care about this problem, and we're not crazy. We're not just pulling something from our butt and saying, this is a good product, this is a good idea, this is a problem. We went and looked at the secondary data and the primary data, right? So I think that really helped as well. And the third thing that really helped us get in was, I would say, getting the first customer really quickly, as well as just trying again, and taking the feedback and trying again. If we had not tried the second time, we probably would never have a chance of getting in because we would never know, right? So I think it took a lot of guts just to even try, but I'm really glad that we did because it changed the trajectory of our company. And the third thing I took a really great shot on, if you guys all have parents who care about school and you care about school as well, you might have heard of the Teal Fellowship, which is the anti-school scholarship. So it's by billionaire Peter Thiel, who was the founder of PayPal. And he basically gives you $100,000 to drop out of school for at least 2 years to work on your existing company. And my parents were professors, just want to put that out there, back in China. And so it was very foreign to them to think, oh my gosh, you take a leave of absence to start a company. This was a really hard thing to get into, but I think the reason I got in was because I had a really good understanding after a couple years in tech, as well as just accumulating all these different experiences of what really mattered to me. Right? Maybe being a millionaire is not the thing that drives me. Maybe it's actually helping some people, but the impact that you create for the world is likely going to create a lot of great outcomes for you. So I think that level of understanding and awareness of yourself is really important. And it's okay if you want to make money. It's okay if you want to help people. I think it's just knowing why you do the daily things to make sure that it's impactful for you and it's driving towards a important goal. So I think that's what they're looking for. But if any of these things are interesting to you, happy to talk about them. at some point, feel free to email me about it or just ask me after. Now, I wanted to show this slide for the students. And the reason why is because these are the things in my life that are really, really, really important to me. My family, my friends, traveling, getting to try different things. I was in Colombia recently, and I got to go paragliding for the first time. I learned to DJ, I learned the motorcycle, I got 2 awesome pets. But yeah, I wanted to show you that it's really important also to live your life. Obviously, this all didn't come all at once. Building a network, building a life takes time too. But I want you to know that if you successfully get to the university of your dreams or the job of your dreams, it doesn't always mean that the rest of your life stops, right? So there will be challenges, there will be great things, and I want you to also aspire for the things outside of school, grades, jobs, because those things are important too. So I wanted to share 4 quick key learnings about my journey so far, being a student, being a Y2 participant, being a founder, and more. The first one I mentioned already at my previous talk, which is relationships matter a lot. And I like to look at this graph from time to time because it really gives you a snapshot perspective of what your life could look like. It's not reflective of everyone specifically, but it's likely the trajectory. The time you spend with your parents decreases, the time you spend with your friends decreases after 30, the time you spend with your partner, but you'll notice the time you spend alone is a lot. And so I think, thinking about this, okay, I need to have a good relationship with myself. Need to have a good relationship with my partner if I choose to have one. I need to have a good relationship with my friends. I need to cherish these relationships when I still have them. And so a couple things that I think are actionable to do. The first is to share a lot of gratitude to the people around you. If someone had helped you from your mentor to the judges to Lucas, your parents for driving you, your siblings, anyone, even your teammates who helped carry you through this presentation, make sure you take the time to thank them. I think it goes a really long way, and it makes you really appreciate every moment towards success, and helps you build these relationships very naturally. And I would say one thing I would thank my old self for when I was in Y2 2016 was I took the time to thank every single judge and every single mentor, even if they didn't work with me. And all the things that they've done for me since then have been incredible. And it might just come in the form of having a good pep talk or sharing a resource. It is all meaningful. So don't take people's time for granted. On friendships, I think this is a really hard lesson you'll learn past high school, is that a lot of your friends may not be the friends you carry through the rest of your life, and that's okay. And what I mean by that is not saying, cut everyone off, you know? It's more that, you know, your time is limited, so choose who you want to be friends with so that you can be a good friend to them. And also, find out earlier what a good friendship looks like. It doesn't always have to be, they give me something, I give them something. It can also be someone who shares your values and is someone who brings you positive energy. That's really important, especially in startups where your company is kind of your life for many years. And so if the people around you are not valuing you or making you feel bad, that's not a good headspace to be in while you're running a business and when it's so tied to who you are. On mentors, I think that everyone should have someone in their life to turn to for advice about life or business. So if you meet any great people today that you want to keep in touch with, definitely do so. And on networking, I think this is probably something a lot of business students, or when you're going into the job route, you're going to get a little bit fearful of. Oh my gosh, how do I network? How do I connect with people? How do I not seem fake? I don't know if I'm pretending. Like, what do I say, right? And this is something that I realized recently, which is people just like to be around interesting people. So be interesting, right? Go build this life for yourself where you can share other things around academics, share your failures and learnings, being vulnerable. And I know, for example, Google's whole philosophy when they started hiring their first 10 people was just to hire smart, interesting people. And so maybe taking that approach will make it a little bit less fearful. Becoming a T-shape is really important. That's my second learning. Here's an illustration for it. And I think that in several parts of your life, they'll ask you to be an expert at one thing. For example, your parents might make you learn an instrument and be an expert at that, right? And then at school, you're learning to be a generalist, being good at being well-rounded, being good at a couple of things, but not being an expert of anything. And then there's this special shape, which is the T shape, being able to be capable of a lot of things and being an expert in one or two things. And that one or two thing could be something even like storytelling. It could be sales. It could be being good with people. It could be engineering. But I think it's really important that you give yourself a chance to find out what that is. And that could take a couple of years. But hopefully you are curious enough about this that you allow yourself to develop that skill. And why that's important is because it just really makes it easier to be able to adapt to a lot of different things while still maintaining a level of self-awareness of like, okay, what am I actually good at? And finding out what you're good at and what makes you money, for example, what makes you happy, those are gonna be tough, abstract questions. So hopefully this is a good guiding principle of, okay, what should I look for generally that may apply to more people? So some actionable things to become a T-shape. I like to think of myself, for example, as a scientist. I do a lot of mini experiments for myself to test these careers or skills that I'm interested in. Again, leading with curiosity, but leading with also a bit of intention of, okay, let me time box this so I know that I have this much time to learn this new skill. And so I gave a couple of examples, some more extreme ones, like I want to be an astronaut, let me interview 3 astronauts in the next 30 days. Getting those interviews takes a lot of guts. You're exercising the networking skill, you're exercising your ability to interview others, you're exercising your research skills, but it just like that versus saying, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna become an astronaut and apply to NASA. It's like a very big jump, right? So in the same way how Y2 is a great first step or a second step, it's really important to learn how to break hard things or seemingly hard things into smaller steps. And one thing I really like to remember and tell myself as an affirmation is that things are actually not difficult or hard, they're just foreign to me. And when you put that mindset to work, then you can break these down into little steps, and one day, you get to where you need to be. And it might actually be faster than you think because you've progressed, you've taken these steps, you've been persistent, and not everyone can do that, and be focused. The second thing I would say is study people who you aspire to be like, but also make sure it's in line with what you want to do, and it actually applies to you. I gave a good example, which is Elon, and I don't want to be Elon Musk, truthfully. I read his book over and over again, his biography, and I don't want to be the same person as him. I think he's awesome, I think he's great for the world. But there are things that apply to me, and there are things that don't. So one thing that I dissected from just reading his book and listening to his interviews is that he was really awesome in university. He did not waste his time to meet with CEOs and have coffee with them in Toronto. At the time, he was a Queen's student. And a lot of his interviews led to the creation of PayPal because he was meeting with these CEOs of big banks. And I thought, okay, now he's a billionaire making rockets and such.
But at one point, he was a Queen's University student like myself, and he, was able to commute to Toronto. That's easy, I can do that. And he was able to find some CEOs that he admired that he can interview. Cool, those are all things that are within my control. I can do that. So I did do that, and that was something that absolutely helped me, right? Some of these people ended up being my investors in my company, or mentors for many years, and so it definitely does matter that you take these steps, but not everything that he does will apply to you. And same thing, in my story, some things might not apply to you, so make sure that you think it through when you get advice from anyone that's successful, especially who's been successful 30 years ago or 40 years ago that you really admire. Some of their advice might not be relevant, so you have to think about it for yourself and make it apply to you. Foreign, not hard. I mentioned this already. But I really like this quote from Michelle Zablick, who is one of my current heroes. She is the founder of Cloudflare, a Canadian woman. And this is what she said about her company, a public company, and what she was working on about 3-4 years ago. And she said, when we came up with Cloudflare, I knew nothing about internet security. They're an internet security company. But I care a lot about liking what I'm doing. I knew if I could help create internet security, that's something I could work hard for and be proud of 10 years later. And 10 years later, we have 165 data centers, 12 million domains, and more than 800 employees. She studied biology, I just want to say. So, and she's Canadian, and she studied at McGill. Studied biology, and somehow she jumped into internet security with no knowledge at all. But she moved out, became the leader, she's still the president. And so when I think about this inspires me a lot because she just admitted I didn't know anything when I got in, but at least she knew that she didn't know what she was doing. So you can fill in the gaps and work on what is the version of T-shape for you within a company like this. So some actionable things to make foreign things a little easier and digestible. The first is to do something 100 times. I know there's something called the 10,000 hour rule, and I know that could work for a lot of people, but sometimes 10,000 hours feels a little bit too big of a goal to accomplish. And it is a lot of sacrifice, a lot of time that you spend. So instead, I would recommend doing something 100 times. And celebrate the little things, like I did it once, I did it 10 times, I did it 50 times. But 100 times is definitely possible for a lot of the things you want to try. So I would recommend trying that out and seeing how that works for the skills that you want to build. As I mentioned, interview or learn from people who have done what you deem as hard. And I think that just the act of talking to them will absolutely change something in your mind. So I wanted to touch on this a little bit more. One of the things I learned at the Y2 events was there's this woman called Boyana who mentioned, I love being the dumbest person in the room. Always try to be the dumbest person in the room or find a bigger room. And that stuck with me for years because that is a great life philosophy, right? You don't have to be the smartest, but you can outgrow rooms. And so I continue to look for rooms where I felt intimidated, where I was not the best, and where I could learn from people. And so I would recommend that you do the same so that, the things that are hard don't seem that hard anymore. And you realize, wait, I am a part of this group now too. So it not only humbles you, but it also encourages you to try to match up, to level up to that point. And the last thing I would recommend for this is just to stay curious and explore often. And just the act of being curious will really guide you to a lot of places where you didn't think you could be before. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of things you probably don't know that you want to know. And it's because you haven't had the opportunity to travel, to meet a lot of people. And once you actually take those steps, you might learn more things, more problems that you can solve, more career paths that have opened up. For example, now with the advent of AI, did you know that 6 months ago, a new role for writing is called prompt engineering? Like, people make like $300,000 a year now writing AI prompts. That never existed before, but someone was curious enough to figure that out. And now you can be curious enough to see if that's a role for you.
And the last piece of advice is just to be self-aware, to know that you can choose your own destiny. I wanted to show this. I studied at Queen's University as an economics student. I'm actually finishing this year because I've got one course left. I can finally finish it because I graduated with a Peter Thiel Fellowship. But this is the economics paths that they recommend on their website. I could be a banker, policy designer, analyst. I could go to law school, or I could keep studying more economics. Those were the choices. Or there was like government too, I think. But had I just listened to what the school said, not that these are bad choices, but they weren't a perfect fit for me. But because I came to Y2 and discovered, oh wait, entrepreneurship is actually a viable career. And that, I'm not my degree, I'm not, the experiences I would hand into as a kid. There's a lot more to me that I need to explore. So I think self-awareness goes a long way to help you avoid this trap of, this is exactly what I have to do because someone told me that is what I have to do. So whether it's your parents telling you this is what you have to do, or you feel like, you're reading things and Google's telling you you can only be this or that, I would definitely question it and question it hard and think about, okay, what is it that I actually want to do and what does that look like? So some things that I would recommend that are actionable. The first is, if you haven't thought about what your dream life looks like at 30, think about it soon. And 30 might seem a long way away. I'm 24 this year, but I really actually enjoy thinking about it because it is a little bit scary to think about, wow, 30 feels like such a big number. All the adults are in here groaning. Lyn, 30's not even, anyways. And so 30 is actually not so far away, and all the little steps you take will lead you to this life. And if you think about it just in silos, oh, I gotta graduate university, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, it's gonna slip away from you, the self-awareness piece of what do I actually want. So I recommend you to think about, okay, do I want pets? Do I want a family? Do I want to live in Toronto, or do I want to live somewhere different? And go explore those things in addition to exploring your career, because those are also parts of you that matter. And I also recommend reflecting on your life every year, setting goals that are tangible every year. So a lot of the goals I have are really lofty, but if I went back to my 2016 self, I couldn't have imagined the way my life turned out because, I want to thank my old self for setting those goals and then surpassing it. And if I did set those goals, I wouldn't have known that this could be something I could do, right? So I recommend reflecting on things, write it down, talk about it with a friend, and I promise you won't regret taking an hour or two thinking about it every year, because it might save you some heartache and time. And that's it. I really appreciate your time. You can find me on LinkedIn at Lyn Chen or at this email. But I appreciate it and looking forward to your